Hi, my name is Jessica Marquez. My lesson title is Water in the Air. My first objective is the student will be able to explain how humidity influences weather and how humidity readings can be used to make weather forecasts or predictions. And my second is the student will be able to make predictions about levels of humidity, conduct experiments, and analyze the results. So those are my standards. Represent data in tables and graphical displays to describe typical weather conditions expected during a particular season, and draw a scaled picture graph and a scaled bar graph to represent a data set with several categories. Solve 1 to 2 step how many and how many less problems using information presented in scaled bar graphs. My measurement of learning outcomes is a humidity comparison worksheet. My descriptions of habits of mind, metacognition, the students will think about what they are thinking, and they will also be thinking interdependently, which they'll be working in groups to complete this activity. The materials I need are sponges, pipettes, plastic plates, the Thirsty Sponge handouts, and humidity comparison worksheets. My vocabulary list would be humidity, saturation, precipitation, water vapor, forecasts, predictions, and their science journals. My introduction, we already know that there is some water in the air, but can air be wet when it is not raining? What would that feel like? How come sometimes it rains when it's cloudy and sometimes it doesn't? I will then introduce the concept of humidity and write it on the board, and explain that humidity is the amount of water vapor or moisture in the air. If the air is more humid, it has more water vapor. If the air is less humid, it has less water vapor. I will discuss which seasons in Los Angeles are humid and that we have warm summers. Explain that warm air can hold more water vapor. In the summer, when it is hot, the air is more likely to be humid. And in the winter, when it is cold, it is less likely to be humid and is dry. I will ask students to think about where the water vapor in the air comes from, and if needs be, explain the water cycle again. So students may not understand what saturation is, so I will demonstrate to them with a dry washcloth and show that there's no water on it. I will place the washcloth in water long enough so that it comes out dripping wet. I will allow the water to drip, and once it's not dripping anymore, show that the students it is still holding water by wringing out the washcloth. I will break up the students into groups and give each group a bowl of water, a plate with a sponge, and a pipette. Before the experiment, the students will squeeze the sponges to see that there's no water in them. Ask the students how much water is in the sponge. Have students make predictions in their science journal about what will happen when they add water to the sponge. Have students take turns taking pipettes of water and pouring them onto the sponge. Have them record how many pipettes full it takes until the sponge is saturated and stops holding water. Remind students to make and write down observations on how the sponge changes with the addition of water. Ask the students what is happening to the water and what will happen if you keep adding water. I will ask the different groups to share their predictions and results with the class and discuss the relation to humidity in the air and precipitation. For example, can air hold moisture without raining up to a certain amount until there is too much moisture in the air and it begins to rain? Discuss that when it is really humid, there is a higher chance it will rain. Discuss the following questions with the class. What is humidity? Where does water vapor in the air come from? How does humid air feel? How does dry air feel? And then for them to do, they were going to do their Thirsty Sponge handout. There's questions on the bottom, and then we'll discuss the answers. And Then they'll do a humidity comparison chart. I'm sorry, worksheet. So here is the thirsty sponge handout. They see how much water they added to the sponge and if the sponge was saturated or not. And those are the questions I want them to answer on their own. Especially the second one, what happened to the sponge when it was saturated? And this is my humidity comparison worksheet. It's comparing two different cities, Los Angeles and Phoenix. And my questions are, what place do you think is more comfortable to live in July? Explain. And what place do you think it is more comfortable to live in January? Explain.